Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a special guest, Janice Papworth, who is based in the UK and began selling on Merch on Demand and KDP in 2018. Since then, she's sold over 50,000 Merch on Demand products and over 425,000 books on KDP. In December 2022, her best-selling book reached the top 20 in the Amazon charts for books in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Janice, thanks so much for taking this time to be here today. We're really happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me, Cameron. It's lovely to chat to you.
So you were last on the channel back in January 2022, so a year and a half ago. So there's a lot that's happened since then. Could you just take us through like maybe what's happened since that time? There's been a whole other Q4 that we've gone through. Could you tell us about that 2022, that your best-selling book hit the top 20 in all these markets?
Yeah, it was pretty unbelievable, actually. I I saw it climbing the charts, and it had the little blue Amazon charts badge, which I've never seen before, and it was on 2 of my books, actually. And I kept phoning my family saying, Michelle Obama's in my way, I've got to get past her. And I did in the end. I got past her for like a week and then slumped back down again. But it was an incredible Q4, and I really hope I can do it again this year.
Was that your best Q4 then since starting in 2018?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
yes. I mean, the previous year was good and I was really happy with it, but it just blew me away this year. Really blew me away.
So you've been advertising for some time. What has your advertising strategies changed or evolved since we last spoke last year, especially considering with just how ever-changing Amazon's advertising platform is?
I'm still running the same kind of ads that I've always run. So I'm still running, I'm quite a sort of keep it simple person. If it's working, I keep it going. So I'm still running the auto ads. I'm still running the lottery ads. I'm still running the testing ads and the performance ads and the product ads. I've got one brand ad. What changed was that I started running a new product ad. I added it in. So I looked at all the data that had come back. And what I noticed was that in the auto ads, I was picking up keywords that were obviously going to the performance and the testing ads. But they were keywords for products that I wasn't expecting my books to sell against. And when I thought about it, I think I mentioned to you actually about the tin of biscuits last time. So when it gets to Christmas, I always buy my dad a tin of biscuits because I don't know what to get him. And so this year, or the last Q4, I started advertising against keywords like tin of biscuits. And that went very well.
So advertising against products that aren't even really related to the books that you're selling.
Yeah, so we think when you advertise for your t-shirts, you're advertising, when you look for products, you're advertising against other products. If you have a t-shirt about fishing, it would be like advertising against fishing rods or fishing floats or fishing jackets, something that isn't another t-shirt, but people are buying alongside fishing t-shirts.
Which makes total sense. That's something I've seen as well with my own products, is it's advertising them on their product pages with stuff that's not even related, or especially with Q4 coming up, there's a ton of gifts that get purchased that people are looking for gifts and maybe don't know what they're looking for. And if you can kind of tack on your product to something that's already selling well and ranking well for certain gift keywords, it can be pretty successful. It sounds like pretty much the same strategy that you found as well.
Yeah, so not just the keywords, but also the actual products themselves. So those keywords are in my performance and testing ads, but then I actually went onto Amazon and picked all the ASINs for the things I thought people might buy alongside my books and set up a separate ad with those products in.
Okay. So just like targeting those specific products with a product targeting ad. And for those that aren't familiar, that's product targeting is where your ad shows up on a product page's detail page. So actual on their listing where they can buy the product, and all the ads that are on that page, that's a product targeting page. Did you have like a specific process to find these, or is this just going through your search term reports?
So I looked for products that appeared in the search terms, and then I looked for other products. So if, for example, you're selling a gaming shirt, and then there's a pair of gaming socks appear in your search terms, I went onto Amazon and I looked for the gaming socks, and there's lots of funny socks that say "Go away, I'm gaming," or if you can read this, "I'm gaming" on the bottom of the sock on the sole. And then I took all the ASINs from the socks, say, and advertised the gaming shirt against those ASINs. That's not exactly what I did, because I did with my book, but I don't want to give away my products.
No, totally. Yeah, I don't want you to, but I think it's more just the strategy involved of not when you're thinking about where to show your ads. I think it really is more about the buyer's intent, what they're doing when they're looking at these other products, because they're looking for a gift for people. So you can have something that's totally unrelated to yours. I remember last year with my best-selling shirts, kind of in the dad, for dads. But one of the best-selling products for it was there was a Carhartt hat. There was like a massage, some kind of massage product as well. It's like they have nothing to do with a shirt. Like if you just think, okay, I need to find close competitors, I'm going to look at other shirts that they might buy. That's not your only competition. People are just looking for a gift. Like think of like what the intent is when they're buying these other products. If they're putting in gifts for dad, it's not just shirts that they're looking for. So kind of like broadening the scope, but going through your data, as you said, that's the best way to start to see what people are, what are they buying? Like, how are they getting to that product, or the search terms they might be using, and broaden that out a little bit too.
Yeah, you're right, Cameron. And you can take the search terms that you see in the data, put those into Amazon to see what comes up, and then you pick the top products that are selling. I mean, I picked the ones that had the most reviews, had the best BSRs. I picked maybe 20, 30 of them, and then I moved on to the next one and picked those as well. And then
you're picking specific search terms to pick those products from. Are those search terms already selling for your product, or how are you choosing like which search terms to find those products on?
So if the search term was gaming socks or socks for gaming person, I would put those into Amazon, that search term. They're showing up in the auto ads.
That for your product as well. So like your products may be ranking for that or getting purchased from those. Like
Exactly.
Gaming socks. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so Amazon's clever, isn't it? The algorithm's clever. It works that out. So it's showing your gaming t-shirt when somebody types in gaming socks. So why not help it out? And then, of course, what happens is if you sell a lot, because when people buy gaming socks, Amazon shows it more. And then, of course, when people go to the product page for gaming socks, not only do they see your advert, but your product starts to appear in that people who bought this also bought this box, and that's free advertising from Amazon.
That's very true. I don't know that I've considered that before. I think it's a great strategy. I think one other awesome part about it that maybe some people don't realize is like for some of those search terms, to actually target those keyword with a keyword, so gaming socks is probably very competitive. That's going to be a really expensive keyword to get your product to show up on the search results page. But if you get your product to show up on the products of that search results page, those tend to be much cheaper to target. So where, it might be $2 per click for gaming socks to show up there, you might only be paying 40, 50, 60 cents to show up on the product page. So it's kind of a roundabout way to target that search term without paying necessarily the click cost of it.
That's a good point. But also, if you're converting as well, then Amazon's not going to charge you so much because it knows you're converting.
That's true. It's like a hidden, there's kind of a hidden quality score to Amazon that they don't really let on. If they think your product's going to convert, you're going to win those auctions much easier than if they don't think it does. Or you're just not going to even show up. If Amazon has no idea whether you're going to sell or not, they're not going to show your ad or even your product. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they want to sell as many products as possible, right?
Because people don't go onto Amazon thinking, I need a gaming shirt or I need gaming socks. They go on there thinking, I need a gift for Johnny and he really likes his gaming. What shall I get? And so that's how they find it.
Yeah,
You've got to help them
exactly.
along, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of what I was getting with, like the intent. Like, what's the intent behind this shopper that they're going for? Like you said, they're not necessarily going to search just for gaming socks. Like their intent is to buy a gift for this person that using whatever they think they want, or the hobbies and so forth.
Yeah, so that was a real game changer for me last quarter four. There's
Did you
my
find like a
secret
lot
sauce.
of order secret sauce? Okay. Was there like a lot of order volume that was driven from those over the keywords?
Yeah, it was nuts. It really was nuts. Yeah, I had to check my ads on a daily basis because they were running out of money, and I was spending a lot of money.
I think this is a great strategy that you could use with almost any product. I've talked about it a couple different times. I haven't done a specific video on it, but I ended up calling these stat campaigns, but search term ASIN targeting. But the same kind of strategy where you take a search term, type it into Amazon, and just target all the top products on that search term. If you're new to doing this, start with what you're already selling for, or what you're already ranking for, so there's some relevance with your product. Otherwise, you can start broadening it out as well. But yeah, you may be surprised what products you find your product pairs well with, or is a substitute for, where someone was going to buy gaming socks in your example. Maybe they're going to buy the shirt instead. They just didn't even think about it.
That's right. Yeah, that's the whole strategy.
I love it. So kind of similar with this. So like keywords also remain a cornerstone. So there's like the product targeting, of course, but then there's also the keywords. Can you discuss your approach to keyword research and optimization, and any tools or resources you use that you find essential?
First of all, if you're looking at KDP, you've got to get your 7 back-end keywords right, because I think Amazon uses those in the ads, as well as the title and the subtitle. So I do use Publisher Rocket to help me to do those back-end keywords. And I think it uses those initially to learn about your book for the auto ads. So when you've got a new book out, the auto ads are going to use those back-end keywords to decide how to while it's learning what to do with the ad. And then I use MerchJar to harvest the keywords from the auto ad into the performance and testing ads, and do it that way.
So starting with the auto campaigns, you're harvesting. Well, I guess before that, like step 0 is the research side, is doing good keyword research. So Publisher Rocket is a keyword research tool. Do you have any specific things you look for when it comes to like finding those keywords, or what makes you have a new product and you're doing your keyword research? Is there any like certain things you're looking for the keywords you're adding to the backend keywords, title, subtitle?
So there's a bit of a plug for Publisher Rocket, isn't it? It makes it very easy, because I look at other books, first of all, that I'm going to compete against, and I see what they've got in their title and subtitle. And sometimes that gives me new ideas for keywords. But in KDP, you've got 7 back-end keywords of 50 characters, and I fill the characters up. And there's a bit of debate whether to do that or not, but I do. And Amazon mix and matches the words within those boxes to make keyword strings. So in Publisher Rocket, it's very easy, because I put in the main keyword, and then it gives me all the variations, and it gives me a competitive score and a volume score, and he colours them carefully in Publisher Rocket, and they come out green and yellow and red. And so I look for high volume and low competition, as you would.
Okay. Do you continue to use that once you're running ads, or is it more if you transition to using the data from the ads?
I rarely change my keywords. I would only change them if the book wasn't selling. And then I might go back in, or I might update them. If I've got the year in there, if I've got 2022 in there, I might update it to 20. Well, I would update it to 2023.
And then for the advertising, you start with the auto campaign, and then you're seeing what works, what starts selling, and you start harvesting those keywords, product targets as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And then those go into, and I've done some videos on this. It sounds like you're doing, move them into a testing campaign. Do you have any like certain keywords that you like? Do you use all the different match types, or do you know, I don't use broad, or what does that look like for you?
I mean, you told me you did use broad. You said just.
Oh, I was.
That's what I'm doing broad. Don't tell me I'm doing
Okay.
it wrong.
No, I think it really depends on broad. I think every single match type has its use. I have to say I am moving away from broad recently. I'm doing a little more phrase, but I think they both can work. So I think they're worth testing. But I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer. I was just curious if there's any changes. So you're doing the broad, and are you doing phrase match and exact match?
No, I'm just doing broad and exact. But I've been watching your videos with Philip last week, the part 1 and part 2. I'm thinking I'm going to have a go at the phrase now, because I ignored it before, because that's what you told me to do in 20, whatever it was. And so that's what I just do as I'm told, Cameron, really.
Well,
I'm relying
I
on
think
you.
so, and this I think comes for just as good advice for everybody is to constantly evolve your strategies or to test new things.
Yeah.
There isn't one, and this, you know, maybe it was a mistake and maybe it wasn't, but my thoughts at the time was broad covers everything that phrase does. So what's the point of phrase? We got our exact, and we're gonna have broad that does everything else. I am finding that phrase can be useful. It's just a little bit more targeted, where broad is maybe a little too broad in some cases. But it really just comes down to like testing everything. What works for me may not work for you. And just test everything and let the data tell you what works. But this really did come from last year's Q4 for me personally. I had a couple phrase matches running, and those ended up driving the highest order volume out of any of my keywords. Way more than the exact match, performed better than the broad matches did, and the broad matches didn't deliver as much order volume as well. So that's what's kind of made me start shifting and start testing, and I'm still figuring out exactly what that strategy looks like.
So do you have your phrase campaign separate to your broad campaign, or do you have it all in one?
I keep it pretty simple with like a single ASIN structure. I got my auto campaign, and maybe I'll have a few of those if it's a good selling product. I'll have one for like loose match, close match, and then I just have a single testing campaign just to keep it simple. I'll have different ad groups in those. I do separate them by different ad groups, more for just ease of, you know, jumping into an ad group and just knowing they're all there. You could combine them. I like to clean it up a little bit more just by having different ad groups. And then with the performance campaigns, so kind of like once we've gone from testing, like, okay, this keyword's really working well, I'll have my exact matches in a single ad group. I'm starting to lean towards single keyword campaigns for the phrase matches as well. You don't necessarily have to do this. This is really more because what I found is when I have these keywords that drive a ton of order volume, like last Q4, I want them in their own campaign so I can really focus on those and drive budget to those instead of being mixed across a bunch of different keywords that some of them may not be performing as well, and I don't want them, siphoning away some of that budget. So that's the reason I'm starting to lean towards just having single keyword campaigns for those. And I got maybe 7 or 8 of those set up for my bestseller. I don't do this for every product. This is going to be for things that are driving enough order volume that it makes sense for it. So that's more of a very specific strategy. I only have that set up for like 2 products that I'm doing that for.
And then do you keep those keywords in the broad and the in the performance, so the testing campaigns, or do you take them out?
I keep them running. I don't like to mess with stuff that's already working. So if something starts selling and I'll move it into another campaign, I'm going to keep it running. And then with the phrase match, what I end up doing is, I use Mershart as well, big surprise. And I set up an ad group in my performance campaign, just like I would move those from a testing to the performance one. This is just set up as a staging ad group is how I don't think I know if I've talked about this on the channel at all, but it's basically just a paused ad group that I add those keywords to. And then I'll manually go through those and create the campaigns myself. That way, especially with and this is just for phrase match that I do this with. there's a lot of overlap sometimes where I can create one phrase match that would end up hitting 2 or 3 of the same keywords in there. So I would rather have just a single keyword than, 3 of them targeting very similar results. There's some like dad gift. There'll be some like extra words in there that you could take one phrase. I'm trying to think. I just keep thinking of my product that has search terms, and I don't want to give away my product either. But there might be like something like dad gift shirt and dad gift, for example. I don't want both those as phrase match keywords. I can just use dad gift, and it's going to cover both of those that I would have. So I might be selling for those 2 search terms that, they both hit my threshold. I'm using like a 20 order threshold that I'm looking at. I'm only looking at my very best search terms to even evaluate for this single keyword phrase match. Again, these are like the performance stuff, things that are gonna potentially drive hundreds of orders in a month. I'm not really looking to drive 3, 4, 5 orders with these.
When you get 20 orders against that phrase,
that's what I'm looking at currently. That's what it's been. And the last time I went through this, just kind of in prep for Q4, I think there was maybe 20 or so search terms that came up for this. And then I just went through and seen where I could get, which phrase matches made sense, that I could kind of cover all these different ones. So it is a little bit of a manual process, but when in some things, you could automate it, but then you run into where there's just a lot of overlap. I'd rather have all that data condensed into as few keywords as possible with this. And I ended up going with like fairly broad. And I don't know if this was the best strategy or not, to be honest. It ended up I've only been running them for about a month, these new ones, and I've spent a ton of money on them, and they haven't really performed. But I feel like they're ones that need to optimize over time. You need to find those search terms that aren't working. You negate them from this phrase match, and you start just being left with the stuff that does working, and you end up with a high sales volume performing keyword.
The trouble is, if you go too broad, then, I've seen this in my ads myself with the t-shirts especially, you don't make any money, because if you've got something in there like Halloween shirt for girls, so many people are clicking on it, and then it's not the shirt they want. You end up, the whole ad is costing you what you're making on the t-shirts.
I think that is something with when you do the broad and the phrase that you can run into, for sure. And this is why I think they should be reserved more for search terms that are already proven, at least starting with that, but not creating too many broad match. I run across some people where they have their auto campaign, and then every time something gets an order from it, they're creating a broad match and an exact match from those search terms. And I don't recommend that. I think you end up with just too many broad match keywords that it's going to be hard to really refine. Because it just requires a lot of testing. You have a broad match or even a phrase match that's targeting hundreds, possibly thousands of different search terms. Now you need testing on all those different search terms that it's targeting. So you could get 100 clicks, and those 100 clicks are across nearly 100 different products. If you only have one click on each search term that keyword's targeting, it's not really telling you that much. You can't really negate something with only one click of data or a few clicks. You need to start getting at least minimum 10, ideally more like 20, 25 for a search term that you can confidently say, okay, this search term's not working. We can turn it off from this keyword, and now you're eliminating what doesn't work, and you're left with what is. So it is a strategy. It does require more money and testing, and you're optimizing over time with those.
Yeah, I think I started doing it when we didn't have too many orders. I was picking up the keywords quite early, but I still have those keywords in my broad and exact, and they are still working. They kind of self-select in the end, because I've got so many keywords in there, and there's a limit of 1,000. So I've had to set up second and third campaigns. If you sell a lot of product, you end up with a lot of keywords.
You have a pretty unique vantage point of selling on merch on demand and KDP. When it comes to advertising, how do the two platforms differ in terms of approach, and effectiveness?
I think KDP is a lot more profitable than merch. I find it hard to make a lot of profit on merch without spending a lot of money on ads. And the KDP ads seem to be a lot more profitable. You get a lot more return on investment than you do on the merch ads. There's so much competition on merch now and so many similar shirts. It's hard to offer something unique. Sometimes I think it's worth advertising things that aren't shirts. I've tried with pop sockets and some of those go well. And I've tried lottery campaigns on pop sockets as well. But I did quite well with tote bags this year, which was interesting.
That's not a product I would have expected.
No. Do you know what I saw tote bags on? I think it's been and gone now. Coronation. Yeah, we had a new king in England.
Oh,
not in
okay.
England, in the UK. But guess what? It was the Americans buying all the Coronation tote bags because we don't have tote bags in the UK. We have tote bags, but Amazon don't do them. So, yeah, Coronation tote bags sold very well in the US. And then I started advertising them. They started selling, so I just slung the design on as I was doing the T-shirts, and then they started selling, and I thought, hang on a minute, this might be worth giving a go.
The competition's interesting because KDP, it's not as, there's just more depth, I think, to the products, where merch products is just a graphic you're throwing up. And let's be honest, like, I think everyone's aware of the rampant theft or copying that goes on with merch, where you can't really very easily do that with KDP. Do you have like a different approach to the competition with merch, or are you like targeting copycats or competitors, or are you just kind of letting it happen?
Not really. I'm running the lottery campaigns, but I'm doing that on books as well. I'm running auto campaigns, but not for many shirts really. It's not worth doing it until they start to sell, until you've got some bestsellers. It's only worth doing it on the bestsellers. And then sometimes when I go to the performance and the testing campaigns, they don't make the money. It's only very few shirts that it's worth running it on. I suppose that's true in the books as well. I think it's best to do them on the bestsellers. It's not like putting your eggs in the one basket. It's kind of almost the 80-20 rule, isn't it? You know which ones are generating the income for you, and they're the ones worth pushing.
Yeah, and I think with like the testing and performance, I mean, I don't have it on tons of different products. I'll do an auto campaign on maybe 10% of my selling products, maybe. But when it comes to like the performance and the testing campaigns, like you really need order volume to drive that. Like without order data, I mean, you don't have anything really to work with. So if you're not getting, I mean, I don't know, at least a dozen or two orders a month, it's just hardly worth doing anything much more than that. Like, what are you going to do with only a couple orders a month of data? It just doesn't really, you know what I mean? It just doesn't really like tell you much.
But sometimes you can have shirts that are seasonal, so they don't sell the rest of the year, but obviously they're selling because like now it's Halloween, and then the ads kind of kick back in and you ramp them up again. So either switching down and switching them up by keyword is quite tedious. I know you can do it with Merch Jar. I can turn them all down quickly with Merch Jar, but getting them up to the right level is the tricky bit because each keyword is different.
And maybe you haven't done this yet, but one thing, because you've been a Merch Jar user for a while, and one of the best advantages, in my opinion, is being able to go back to previous seasons. So like if you're a Halloween seller and you've been using Merch Jar for at least a year, you can just go back to 2022, look at the last 2 weeks of October and see what keywords were working, what their CPC was, and what your target CPC needs to be based on the conversion rates of that date. So it makes it easy to start. I do this ahead of time for me, it's Q4 once we get into Black Friday or so. So the couple weeks before that, the first couple weeks of November, I'm going to be looking back to last year and seeing, okay, which keywords were working and start ramping those up to the CPCs that I know I hit last year, knowing full well it's going to probably be at least as expensive this year, if not more so, just with the ever-growing costs and competition. So it just gives you a good way to see kind of a benchmark of what your bids need to be.